So hi
Okay, great.
everyone. I'm Arun from Bistec. I'm Lucknow. So welcome Ankit to the session for data analytics. So guys, Ankit is a senior product manager at Microsoft. He has over 10 plus in as a PM role in Facebook, ClearText, and as a consultant also in Cognizant. He actually likes the data-driven approach and has like his own website on cricket analytics also, and has a maintain a blog also. So actually, we have received some questions also from all of you folks. Feel free to type in chat box also if you have any more questions. So over to you, Ankit.
Sure. Thanks, Arun. Okay, great. So, Arun, just like, what is the so all these folks are like MBA students, or like, can you give me like a brief overview of the kind of audience that you have, so that way I can like tailor some of the questions or some of the slides.
Yeah, the entire audience is from B schools only, MBA folks
Okay,
only.
B schools. Okay, so most of them are students, or even there are some fresh graduates.
No, most of them are in second year actually, entering second year.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Okay, great. Yeah, so I think thanks for introducing me, Arun. And I'll give a quick intro about myself, and then how we will like shape this talk is that I have made a few slides. Like, we'll won't take like too much time, maybe like just like 20-25 minutes, and then we would open to question and answer. So Arun had also shared a bunch of questions, but feel free to like add more questions in the chat room, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Okay, so quick intro about myself. So I have been like doing product management actively like for almost 3 years or so now, 3.5 years, not more than that. Before that, I have experience mainly on data side, and some experience on operation side, and little bit of consulting as well, but that consulting was more like analytics related work. So yeah, through like last, like I'll say like last 7 years or so after my MBA. So I had 3 years of experience before my MBA. I did a 1 year MBA from SPGen, and then after MBA, I think now I have 7 years of experience. So my journey has been like trying to find what I love, and I developed a love for data, and that led to roles in analytics and growth, then operations, and then over the last 3 years, I have been like doing some sort of program management, and like 50% product, 50% program. And I would love to like share through some of the journey and some of my learning and experiences, and I hope to be of like some help to you guys. So yeah, we'll get started. Okay. Uh, okay, so yeah, I'll just share my slide. So we'll just like kind of to get started with, and then we'll head to the Q&A mode. Uh, Arun, can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, we are able to see the screen now. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So like it'll be a like very interactive session. So I'll start with some of the things that. So basically, like I have always loved like data. So, and then data has helped me shape my career. So I just wanted to like walk through some of the interesting tidbits in my life, though there are many, but I thought I'll share a few. So this is like it's a story of almost like maybe 4 years back. I was roaming, like I really love to shop at supermarkets. Like that's one of my like favorite time pass thing, or a hobby, you can say. So while walking like through one of the aisles, I saw that there were like two stacks of cookies. Like one was Britannia Marigold, and one was say Sunfeast Mary Light. And the Marigold was like huge number of packets, like maybe 40 to 50 biscuit packs were there. And the others just next to it was this Mary Light, which had just around 20 or so. Like looking at it, it seemed like everybody was buying the Mary Light, very small number of cookies. But I went and looked at them, and I found something very interesting. So I made some hypothesis in my mind, and I was keeping a watch and that aisle, and kept roaming for 15-20 minutes. After 15-20 minutes, I saw out of those 20 in this bottom one, almost like 10 to 12 had sold, whereas the other one just 2 to 3 had sold. So I was like, okay, my hypothesis is correct. So I'll show you like what had happened. So right, if first instance you see these two, right, and assume both quality are similar or the brand is similar, many of us like will likely to buy the second pack, like the bottom one. Like I'm not sure like if there is a voting or anything, but I'm just assuming like many of you will actually go for the other one, because same price, same quality, similar brand, and it says 21% off. But the moment, like if you actually see, this extra metadata that the first pack Marigold was actually 89 grams for 10 rupees, and the other one, which is 21% off, was 70 gram plus 15 gram, which is 85. So though net the above one is actually cheaper, but because of this 21% off, everyone was blindly buying the second one. So just one very small observation, which kind of like it had almost 5x the sales as the other biscuit, and assuming the product quality and the brand is the same, which kind of is similar in this case, Sunfeast versus Britannia. So yeah, just a small piece. So things like this, I really love to observe things around me, and like especially with numbers and such small things that kind of offers like a different perspective towards things. So similarly, like one more thing I'll like to show here. So this actually, like I don't use Paytm much. Like Google Pay is the new norm, so use a lot of that. But it is, I think, maybe something like 2 years back I saw that after we use Paytm, right, they used to send a this NPS sort of a form to measure CSAT, and a lot of product managers actually, this CSAT is their core metric which they track. So the earlier the design used to be something on the top, like very likely, and with boxes and a 10-point Likert scale. Some, like after one day I realized they actually changed the design. It's the same thing, the way you compute your NPS, like SATs minus DSATs by number of responses, but for 7 and 8, which is like a neutral, they added this red color mark. So which is a visual cue that if someone, say, in the above flow is giving a 7 or 8, now by looking at this red sign, it's quite probable they will move to very likely. So this is basically, you're altering your user behavior by changing the design. So net that product manager in Paytm, he might have shown to his manager that, hey, I have increased my NPS, but eventually nothing might have happened in the product. It's just how the scale was represented. So just a like a example of how even like such small things can lead to behavior changes in your audience. Okay, so I think this is one of my like core mantras which I like always like to share, is that what gets measured gets analyzed, and what gets analyzed gets acted upon. So it's, so because I am like more from a data driven background and more like a data and platform PM, I'll walk through a little bit what I do at Microsoft as well. So this is something which I really transpire and care about and try to do in my day to day work. So that's one funda. So another like one more like analogy on this. Arun, the voice is clear, right?
Yeah, yes, we are able to hear. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so one more like small analogy. This is like just I picked it up. So we actually had some like uh, movement in Microsoft, like some offices, some floors where we were actually moving from, like we have small cubicles, and the cubicles we were moving to open office kind of a scheme, like kind of a floor plan, and so earlier where three cubicles used to be there, right? Now in that much space, four people can sit. So basically, the HR team actually sent a huge email that we have actually done 33% more utilization, right? So where three people used to sit, now four sit, right? So they are saying one extra on each three, 33% more utilization. So that was their tagline, that we are like made open office and we have 33% more utilization. But the other way to look at it is, if some, so that's a positive way to look at it. But if someone wanted to say, oh, I have less space per employee, then you will actually not say the other way, 33%. Then you will say, where four people used to sit, now three people are sitting. So one out of four, 25% less space. So this is the beauty of numbers, that you can actually communicate anything in any way. So if this would have been a positive message, you can actually say 33% more, or a negative can be 25% less. So I just wanted to call out that like numbers is something like even like when I was looking at a lot of this coronavirus thing, that people have different ways to analyze the data, that someone is saying a number of tests, test per capita, active rate, growth rate, r this that. So like the more we are comfortable with all these numbers, the more we understand, like not just absolute but with respect to percentages, if we can normalize things better. Like there are so many instances which in our day to day work, where some of these thinking and some of this skill set actually works as to like perform better and understand our users, customers, and build products in a better way. So that was the key message here. One more small slide. one more like example. So this is also like, I think maybe 5 years back, sort of, not five, maybe 4 years or something. So this, in my last company, the HR actually sent an email that to all our employees, and she said like, this is exactly the email which she sent, that currently 13th is declared as a holiday, and we want to give, so it was an optional holiday or something for Dashera. So she said like, we which day you want to opt for holiday for Dashera. So as soon as I looked at the email, I saw that something is grossly missing. So I went to her and I asked her that like, how many people opened the email and how many responses you got. Like, she only had the number of responses, but a typical email like this had like a 30% open rate, like, or maybe higher, right? HR sent. So assume in this case like 50% was the open rate, but she had only got 50 responses. So out of 1,000 people, she only had 50 responses. So 5% was her response rate, and 500 people had opened the email. So it's basically, even for a basic thing like an email, we can actually track that how many opens were there and how many CTA or like call to action. So here a response rate is a call to action. So she sent those 1,000 emails, only got 5% responses, because it's like, it's this mentality, right? That how do you think from an end user point of view? The problem here was that this 50% action rate could have given her even a 40% response rate. Like, even there could have been 40% response rate. But the problem in this email was, if she would have given an extra metadata, right, that 13th is, say, a Sunday, or maybe, or metadata on that, what is 13th, what are 11th, 12th, 13th. Like, if you could have told, right, that 13th is a Friday, so obviously like people have clicked there and actually given a holiday for 13th, or if 11th were a Friday or a Monday basically. So the point was that we really need to think from end user point of view, that what are the customer touch points, how we can actually enable our customer to make the decision and make the decision faster. So if we would have added those days along with the date, the response rate actually would have been much higher. So I just told her, and then she was like, "Wow, Ankit, like this is good, and I'll take care of it the next time." So just a small example how such things can really help us communicate better, as well as like help drive better decisions by our end users or customers which we care about. So I have just a few slides on like one of the, like, this is mainly a principle like which kind of helps in both product and marketing kind of like roles and scenarios. So we'll go through like few of these scenarios, and I have a slide where I talk through some toolkit which can be handy for both product and marketing roles. And yeah, so the like the key components of understanding a customer journey is like mode of acquisition, how do you activate the user, how do you retain, and how do you grow. Growth can have aspects of monetization as well. So this is one framework which really helps us understand the end-to-end customer life cycle. So similarly, so this is more related to end-to-end customer life cycle. Similarly, there are frameworks from a product thinking point of view, like a circles method, or we will like, maybe we'll cover in Q&A some of those things. So in any kind of business, right, it's really important to understand who your target audience is, what is the like problem or pain you are solving for them, or what is the real delight you are bringing to them, how does it like really tie into your vision, to your strategy of your org. And then you kind of work on other things, like right from prioritization to like building a plan, and then working on metrics and KPI. So I'll walk through some of the other things, but this is really important. Like, the more you can understand your customer and then create an entire flow around that problem and the USP and the value and the roadmap and thinking about metrics. And another important thing is like, how do you look at your measuring your feedback, like how are you interacting with your customers, do you have like a regular flow to interact with them, metrics to track their usage, track churn, track growth. So these all things are really important if we want to build a great end-to-end user lifecycle journey. So moving on, like this slide I just wanted to talk upon. So this is basically what I'm calling the product and marketing toolkit. So a lot of these I used to work in my last job and like the last two jobs here in Microsoft. We do use a like bunch of internal tools, but a lot of principles and learnings from these actually helped me a lot in some of my role at Microsoft. So life cycle management is something where it gives you a very good sense of where are users clicking and what are they doing, the dwell time on a lot of the pages, and you can define a lot of journeys and click throughs. So this helps you create a lot of measurement, as well as a lot of user notifications and emails. So these tools are like pretty good, you should actually go through them. It kind of gives you a very good flavor of how do you track user journey end to end, and also build some sort of like reporting and analytics, and some key event based funnels, and as well as some mechanisms like even notifications or pop-ups or those kind of things. So this is some tools on lifecycle management. Similarly, like email automation is also very important. A lot of companies like build them to aid basically the lifecycle management. So this is also like a kind of a good skill set to have. Then like campaign optimization, so a lot of like marketing kind of roles, right? Especially in today's world, like I think most of you know about these, but like digital marketing and all the CTR, CPC, or your social channels, your blogs and paid versus free, or when is LinkedIn better, when is Google better. So all these things are like kind of good to know. Then SEO is also something important. Like this is slightly more about like how do you optimize your landing pages, which kind of keywords you need to have, how do you come up top of the search results. So this is also a good skill to have, which I really recommend, like specifically folks who are interested in marketing, to actually go through some of these and practice few skills. One tool like I really liked in my last role was Zapier.com, because we were a startup, right? So we had a lot of processes on like ops, on product, where we used to have like it, say different systems, right? My support system to my lead management to my CRM, and we wanted to have all these systems talk to each other. So when you are working for a big org, right? We have the luxury of like in-house tools and like everything is in order. But in smaller companies, there are a lot of tidbit softwares and pieces which really need to be connected together in order to understand the entire business and create a coherent view. So this is where some of these tools like Zapier.com are really great. So do check it out. Like if you have some time and learn about it, it can help you in like some of the real business cases or in some of your jobs. And then I think CRM tools is very straightforward. Support tools everyone uses like Zendesk, Freshdesk. These also have a lot of capabilities. And wireframing is something which is really important for PM. So it's kind of a like part of a mock-ups and wireframing, and like kind of overlaps a bit with design as well. So Marvel, Balsamic, or even like you can do it on PowerPoint. And then reporting is also important, because um, it's more important to like define which is the right data, how do you make sense out of it. But after you define those things, right, that these are my KPI, these are my metrics, this is how I'm going to track success for my product, then you really need to have the right level of arbitration, and also plot out these metrics. Like these are my top 3 4 metrics which my LT or leadership team will care about. These next level of metrics my I will look into it, and the next level even more detail my analyst can look into it. So we these like knowing these tools also helps. And then I think the third last bucket is very straightforward on like Google Forms and SurveyMonkey. So this is kind of good to have. So this I kind of like put together a summary. So in my last 3 roles, I worked a lot on these tools, and that helped me get a lot of like first hand data thinking, build brush up a lot of my marketing skills, helped me develop some product skills, and which kind of helped me transition to Microsoft. So yeah, just wanted to walk through some of these. So maybe like Arun can also share the slides with you so that you have a record of this. Okay, so now I'll quickly walk through like little bit of what I do at Microsoft, and then if you have any question on this deck per se, we can take them. Otherwise, we'll open up for Q&A. Okay, so my current role is I am a platform and data PM for Knowledge Graph. Knowledge Graph is uh, it's a graph where we store a lot of information about a lot of like entities in the world. So an entity can be a person, a place, for example, even an institute or a movie or a TV show or an organization or a product, like anything uh, which is a more like a noun is actually we have information about everything. So this data is we have like data in for billion plus entities and like 50 billion plus facts. So for example, even for IIM Lucknow, we will have like who founded it, what are the courses it is offered, and a bunch of other information, or who's the current chairman, notable alumni, year which it was founded in, or courses offered, right? Bunch of different things. And the way this graph is built is it has data in the form of a structured ontology, where you have one entity and then you have a lot of facts, and then they also connect to other nodes in the graph. So it's an interconnected graph with very rich and structured data, which helps us power a lot of experiences on bing.com. So my role is that I work on the data strategy, that how do you get data, how do you ensure that data is very high quality, how do you build experiences with this which really can satisfy a lot of user needs. So a lot of this data is powering experiences on bing.com. So we are slowly growing in international markets, but we do have a lot of coverage and revenue in US and Europe. In India, we still are building a lot of our like quality and relevance of answers. So yeah, you might not have used it, but I think you must have heard of bing.com. So what this graph helps is, say if you want to search for a query, say what is the age of Tim Cook's older son, right? So this kind of query, you really need to understand that who is Tim Cook, which are the like relationships, like which are the children of Tim Cook. Then you need to understand what are the age of those children of Tim Cook. So, or if he does not have children, then it will return like he does not have children. So, or if you want to say, say uh, son-in-law of Trump. So if Trump has like just one daughter who is married, you can get the answer. So it's a graph with very rich data and a lot of connections. So one example I have pasted here, like if you want to search for say $1 billion Indian software companies. So for this kind of query, you really need a lot of structured data. So in fact, like if on Google, right, sometimes you might have seen that there is a knowledge panel which comes on the right hand side, or if you search for top Hollywood movies, top Hollywood romantic movies, or things like that, a lot of these structured experiences come from knowledge graphs. So Google also has this and Bing also has this. So I work on this product at Microsoft. Yeah. So I think these were the slides, and like just another like quote which I really like is that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So yeah, these were the key slides. So do we have like any questions, guys, on these slides per se? Otherwise, we can open and head to the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Ankit. That was really interesting. And the biscuit analogy and observation on office space and HR, and also for covering tools. Actually, many people ask for covering tools, which one to do. So actually, that is also covered. We have five, six
Okay.
questions in the chat window now.
Okay, so let me try to see. So I see participants. So actually, we use Teams. So I have not used
Yeah, so
Zoom.
actually, I can narrate. Actually, one of them has asked the
Sure.
difference between product management, program management. Like some organizations say these two roles
Correct.
at Microsoft. If you want to
Yeah,
tell.
sure. 1 second, I'll go to that. Let me try to see how can I go to the chat window so that I can also see those comments. Uh, okay, 1 second. Let me try to stop share. Then maybe I might be able to see. And where is chat window? Yeah, chat. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. So what was the question, Arun? The difference between program and product management. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Ankit, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So let me like tell you guys like what is program and slash project. They're kind of used interchangeably. And what is product management? Okay. And how do companies like kind of have different nomenclature, and what are the terms? So actually there are like 3 4 uh, roles which you might have seen in the industry. One is program management, one is technical program management, which is a TPM, one is product management, and sometimes even a project manager. Like many companies have these, IT companies have a project manager kind of a role, right? So product manager is someone, right, who is mainly involved in the strategy and like thinking through like what really is the solution, or what really needs to be done. So the product guy is someone who works on the vision, the strategy and design and execution of their product. So he or she is a person, right, who is a like a great problem solver, and who really defines like what and why needs to be done. And so that's what he does. And program is mainly like he focuses on how, like how it needs to be done. So product manager will say, for example, if someone wants to say a new build a new feature for LinkedIn feed, assume there is a problem that there is a lot of fatigue in the product and the LinkedIn feed is not really doing well. So that product manager actually thinks about that, what really needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and he will work with like some designers and user research. He will think of a solution for that problem, and he will define like what needs to be done. So that is the product play. So product really is all about strategy, vision, and then thinking through design. And also like they also work on roadmap sometimes, so he will also potentially create a roadmap, or he may not, it depends on org to org. Program manager is someone who basically makes this roadmap, or sometimes product manager will create a roadmap and give it to program manager. And then program manager, he needs to have a skill set of like great communication skills. He has to understand business, little bit of tech, but he actually focuses more on execution part. That he has a good set of roadmap which either he prepares or a product, or he prepares with product manager, and he has that roadmap which now he works with engineering team or with other support teams, marketing team, like they have to do a GTM, and then he will kind of execute it. But the product manager is still the owner for the success of the product. So all the KPIs and the metrics that product manager will define, but the program manager will ensure that all the execution of the roadmap, everything happens through. Project manager is also kind of similar. Like if a project is defined, he or she will ensure that it runs very successfully or smoothly. So that is the core difference between like program and product manager. And technical program manager is slightly more engineering oriented. Like they need to understand more of like technology, systems and APIs and code, software, so that they are much more they can drive things much more efficiently with engineering teams. A normal program manager can still do some sort of engineering, but all the cross functional teams. So Amazon has all three kind of roles. They hire both product manager, they hire TPM, which is a technical program manager, and they hire a program manager. Whereas Microsoft just has one role, which is called program manager, but they are expected to do both product as well as program. So Microsoft has just a single function. Google has both program and product, and Uber also has both program and product. And yeah, so I think that is the key difference, and how some of these companies like have this kind of vertical basically defined. So if you have any more questions, you can ask me, but that is a high level overview. And another tip is that you should also read a lot about the JDs of these roles. So like I said, right, Amazon has 3 categories, Google has 2, Microsoft has 1. So if you read a lot about the JDs for these roles, right, it gives you more clarity on the kind of things which these companies are looking for or these roles demand. Yeah, Arun.
Are you able to access the chat screen, or shall I
Yes,
read?
I can see. No, I can see. So can you tell me which question to pick?
Yeah, actually, many of them ask like to transition to PM role. So
Sure,
how can one start developing skills for a product management role?
sure. I think this is one of the like most question, like one of the like most asked question to me, that how do we like transition to product roles and what can we do. So I will tell you like a little bit on like what are the core PM skills which like companies really care about. Okay, and then I will tell you little bit like about my journey, and then what are the things which you can do to move to product roles. And then if there are some more questions, then we can discuss. Okay. So I think what, and I am also still like in a lot of learning phase. Like every day is a new learning for me. So I have bunch of my strength areas, but I do have a lot of weaknesses. So PM, like it's a continuous journey. So let me tell you like what are the really key important skills, right? So the most important skill of a PM, right, is to really focus on why. So by why we mean like, why do you want to do something? Like what is the value? Are you able to solve a pain, or are you able to create some delight to the user? So a PM has to really obsess about customer value. That is the most important skill set for a PM. Like it's not about execution, it's not about solutioning. First of all, it's walking in customer shoes and really focus on the problem, focus on like a strategy and then USP, And then the second point is like, after focus on why, is brutal prioritization. Like a PM has to be so good at prioritization, because once you start working, right, there are millions of things which you can do. So you really need to think smart, think very deep on articulating the value for each of your proposal, and then coming up with like some great recommendations. So brutal prioritization is really really important, and these are some skill sets which will be judged when you actually kind of give these interviews. And I will also tell through little more things like what can you do to get these interview calls or transition. Third thing important I would say is like good storytelling and communication skills. That's also like pretty important for a PM. So if someone is like not able to communicate well, or they can think great things but they are not able to communicate, or so that is also a skill which is kind of important. Then the fourth thing is like some core set of skills, right? Little bit of like you need to have some tech skills, some business and product skills. Like you need to understand, say, how do you acquire customers, how do you retain, grow, or maybe like some sort of product skills, or like thinking skills. Like if someone asks you that how can you build this feature, that how will you think end to end. So there are like lot of, I'll share some blogs and all which I also keep reading, and there are like methods like this circles way of thinking which kind of lays down the process. So any kind of case study you can actually apply this method. It's kind of a checklist which kind of says you're covering all the important things when you're thinking about a user problem, and specifically with this product hat. So you can always have these things handy, which kind of helps you like cover a great set of solutions. So yeah, the fourth point was, as I mentioned, like a core skill, which is a tech, some business and product skills. And business is also important, right? You need to understand end to end, like how will you acquire customers, how will you connect with them, how will the GTM happen, how will support happen, how will basically the churn will be there, or like how do you monetize. So some sort of business skills are also important. And then I think the last skill is, which in my opinion is something more of a data analytics or a metrics kind of a skill set. That can you really think that if you are building this product, what are the core metrics or KPIs which really care about? Because otherwise, right, if you don't have a good set of measurables, how will you know you are doing well, or you are doing track on track? Or if, how will you ensure that your engineering team is aligned behind some common objectives? Otherwise it can happen, right, there are people are doing some things and you're not getting enough value. So it's a end-to-end flow, right, which as a PM you ideate, you think, you create some sort of a solution, then you have a roadmap, then you execute, and then you measure success and iterate and improve and ensure your customers remain happy and you are able to meet your business or product goals. So that these are the core PM skills. Now how do you move to PM roles? Okay, so there are like different ways to move to PM roles, right? One is, so I think the most important thing is, uh, if you, it's eventually all about a story, right? So I'll start with my case and then I'll go generic. Okay, so my experience was that I did my MBA, I got a like a normal kind of a role with as a consultant with Cognizant Business Consulting. And sorry, let me have some water. So one sec. Yeah, so there I got deployed to Microsoft as a, for a research project with Microsoft Ads. So I kind of started learning the ads business and working on some sort of business intelligence and analytics and insights on some of the like Bing.com only for some of Europe and US markets. That how are users coming, which ads they're clicking, which ads are monetizable, how can we increase the ad spread, how can we increase the RPM and like CPC without without increasing like the ad spend ratio. Like we don't want to show too many ads, right? Otherwise you will make money but customers will get pissed off. So there is a balance. So it was a ratio, I don't remember the name now, but it's something on ad utilization, like ad space utilization. So we need to maintain a metric. So I started there, and then moved to Facebook. It was a pure operations role in safety team. So my role was that people, there is a lot of like abusive stuff on Facebook, like people post bad stuff, or people impersonate each other, or there can be bullying, harassment. So Facebook safety team both proactively and reactively ensures that people actually have a great stay on Facebook and they are able to remove a lot of this content. So I used to work on like models on how people can report things in a better way, or proactively remove some stuff from Facebook, and ensure that we have like great ops support if there are reporting, and then work on like streamlined process and bunch of automations to automatically remove this bad stuff or add a lot of efficiency to the system. But that was still more like business and operations kind of a role. I wanted to move to product because I was proposing some things but someone else was building them. So I really wanted to move to a state where I can also like build some of this stuff. So I moved to a startup because I was not getting like PM roles in top tier companies. So I, after Facebook, I actually moved to a startup just to learn about product and growth. So in that I moved to startup called ClearTax in Bangalore. They make like products for tax filing, tax saving, and some B2B products for GST and stuff. So there I worked on a lot of stuff which was like really really interesting. I set up the entire sales flow. I set up the entire customer lifecycle management. Like, so I was in charge of user conversion on the site. If someone starts a flow, how many people are able to convert? So that flow I was responsible for. So that was a great learning for me. I could set up systems. I understood. I used to talk to customer. I used to create funnels for user drop off. I used to understand like what things are working, what things are not working. Then I slowly worked on marketing channels, like how do you acquire customers, which channels are working for us, where is retention high. Then I worked on a referral feature where people could refer to other folks and they could actually file more. So even a referral kind of a feature took almost 3 months to build, and it was such a great learning to actually see how you think of different ways, how do you work on. So we also had metrics that how many people will click on it, how many people will share, which channels which they will they work, and how many will come to our funnel, how many will they convert. There was a lot of fraud mechanism which we built because it was say, and we experimented with like should we give 100 rupees, 30 rupees. So even like small things, but they actually still had a very good learning for me. So I kind of worked on growth and product roles in that startup for 2.5 years. And then I wanted to even get more grooming and more learning in my PM journey, which I'm still like learning a lot. There are so many things which I need to learn. So here now in Microsoft I work on this knowledge graph where it's a very core technical work, and there's a lot of like data driven work here and a lot things on the platform and things on user experience, and like great set of engineers who I like get to work with, and the learning is really really immense. But the most important learning in Microsoft is how do you really really think about user value and really really go very deep about the user problem and the uh, thinking process before you actually come to a solution, and then you start building something. So that journey and the way you present some things to your stakeholders, these are like some very very important skill set which Microsoft focuses a lot on, and that has been immense learning. So now coming to how do you move to product roles, right? So it's like you really need to stand apart in something, that this is your story. Like you can be someone who is very very good in say particular domain, like even say you are working as a dev, but you really really go deep in some particular areas, and you really are think about the customer, or you have a kind of a data mindset that you are actually able to create such great process or recommend some solutions or build some roadmaps which kind of are making you stand apart. Or you are a very creative person, right, who is able to think very differently, who can think of very interesting ideas which can solve problems in a very unique way. So there are like different channels to move into product. Like you need to either have a like a domain knowledge of something good, like you can be a consultant for a fintech company, right? So you understand a lot about the customer mindset and the user value which you can bring in that domain. So even if you don't have product management experience, but say you have consulting or a dev experience in a fintech domain, so you can actually brush up some of the other skill set which I mentioned, and I'll share some blog and some material with you. But you can go to a fintech company and actually move to a product role. So, or for example, you are a developer who has done a like a good MBA, then you can like, because you have a dev background, you understand tech, now you understand business with your MBA skill set, so you can move to a similar sort of a industry. Like if you are in a tech industry, you worked on B2C products, so you can move to a B2C product as a product manager if you have done a good MBA, like because there also you get a lot of skill set. Or if you don't have an MBA, you are a say a developer in a XYZ domain, but you get brush up a lot of these other skill set, you can actually target PM roles in, say, maybe startup, not maybe like a top tier company. It depends, like even you can get that. But so the idea is that you need to connect these bridges somewhere, connect these dots, and then move to a like a different function. For example, software to product or customer support to product, but your domain or industry has to be the same. But if, for example, say I am working as a B2C product manager, I can also try to go to a B2C, like some other kind of a tech company as a product manager. So it's all about creating these bridges. It can be a domain, a function knowledge, or a industry knowledge, or a platform knowledge, and then you can switch basically from one domain to another domain. So does this clear, or if there are some specific questions I can answer?
Actually, there is one more doubt related to
Sure.
knowledge graph also, Ankit. Like, is
Yes,
that
yes.
knowledge graph and machine learning models to get better insights out of the data? Are they integrated for that purpose?
I'll like try to rephrase the question. So we are saying that how are we generating insights out of the knowledge graph? Is that the question?
Yeah, yes, I think, yeah.
Okay. So the way this knowledge graph is built, like let me tell you a little bit how it is built. So we scrape data from a lot of sites and sources around the world where we are legally allowed to crawl data, like things like Wikipedia, and there is a lot of freely available data. Second is like we buy a lot of data from paid providers, like a lot of sports feeds and a lot of like other, say, awards related data, a lot of health related data, retail product data. And then we also partner with a lot of data for traffic deals where we don't pay them but they give us the data. And then once we have all these data from feeds, from providers, from crawl data, then we consume all this data and store it in a graph, making sense out of this. For example, there can be 100 pages who are talking about Sachin Tendulkar, right? So we really to understand that there is only one Sachin Tendulkar node in the graph, so all of them have to point to the same thing. And now I have, say, hundreds of facts about Sachin Tendulkar. So maybe five, I am getting five heights for Sachin Tendulkar from multiple sources. So first thing is that all of these data have to point to Sachin. Then I have five heights which are again mapping to, say, some property which is person dot height. And then I am having five heights for that Sachin Tendulkar. Then I have to understand that which is the most relevant height for this particular entity. So we have a lot of machine learning models which kind of do all this work. So it's all the components are like ingestion, conflation, ranking, cleaning, validation. So then, like with all these systems, we so there are a bunch of ML models also which kind of say that which is the most uh, relevant data point for a given entity or a given fact. So then this graph is composed, and then the other components of ML. So one is in the creation of the graph, and then when we serve data outside, like for some of the experience, there are some models which run, which kind of, but most of these are like graph walk algorithms. So to serve, there can be some components of ML, but more or less in serving logic, it's mainly algorithms as compared to ML models. ML models are mainly on the creation part of the graph and validation and cleaning. On serving stack, there are some other components where ML models run, and then they refine the query to a form where we do graph walk and serve the final experience. So there are different components, but there is a lot of algorithms and ML models which run in the overall ecosystem.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and one more question is on like when the product is like you have to track whether the product is successful or not. So can you please share some of the metrics or parameters that you would like to track for the impact of that product?
Sure. So see, it will depend a lot about like that particular product, right? And what does it care about? Is it adding some value? Is it bringing usage? Is it bringing revenue? So there can be different parameters, right, which the product manager will kind of define for his or her product. But I will give you like some framework which I have kind of used in some of my previous work, which has helped me. It's like a L0, L1, L2 matrix. So what happens is, for example, let's say pick Uber, right? Uber is a like say there are a lot of rides, right, and a lot of stuff is happening. So when we think about a L0, L1, L2 metric, right? So L0 is like top metrics which really care about us. So for example, for an Uber, their top metrics can be, I'm just writing it down side by side. Say L0 is number of rides per day. I'm just making it a number of rides per day, total revenue. Okay. And next can be average CSAT. Okay. Because like say people give rating, right, 4 and whatever, like out of 5, and maybe like one metric can be percentage zeros. Percentage zero, it means like someone is trying but not able to find a cab. Actually this is not a L0, this is more of a L1 metric. So L0 is metric is something which like a CEO will care about. So he will care about just the CSAT, total revenue, number of rides per car. Now L1 metrics can be next level of metrics where you have more details. So I'm talking about these are say rider metrics. There can be say partnered metrics also, or like some other sort of metrics or efficiency metrics or different things. But assume that I am the VP of product quality for booking rides, right? So from a from a end user point of view, I take care of like the quality of rides for Uber, and there can be other product leaders also. So L0 metric is something which is like core metric. Like it can be a revenue metric, can be daily users, can be daily new users, or can be your number of customer complaints. Like very core metrics which a executive will care about. Now L1 is basically the next set of metrics which can be say for Uber say percentage zeros, like how many times people are trying but they are not able to book a cab. Next metric can be average ETA. Like you might want to track that every cab is coming within 5 minutes. So this is basically the next set of metrics. So you might have 5 to 7 metrics which gives you more understanding of the business, but it's an L1 metric. L2 metric can be like time taken to book a cab, or number of time the cab is cancelled, right? Or maybe L0 can be escalations as in how many times like something really bad happened. That will be L0 metric. So it's like a framework which kind of helps you create a sort of a tree structure that will give you everything, but it is at the right level of abstraction that the relevant stakeholder can look at the respective set of metrics. So it's like L0 for execs, L1 for product manager, and L2 is like for the analyst plus product manager. Yeah, so I think that is my guidance when we think about metrics. Like that's what I think about.
Okay.
And we really need to ensure that you are mapping it to your key business objectives and goals.
Okay. So
Anything else on this?
okay, I will move to next one. There is no on this. So
No
like
problem.
when you have a product like as you were telling of knowledge graph and all, so you like being get us to different like geographies also. So based
Correct.
on like this psychological, you have to whether have you amended your product also like some based on
Yes,
any.
yes, yes. Yeah. So see, it's like you might have a like it's they call, right, today's world is locally global, or like there are like very rough acronyms like global, right? So it is very important, right? How you tailor your product, tailor your experiences. So there are a lot of things like you need to do user research, you need to look at competition, you need to like really be cognizant of the needs for a user. Like even some things like very basic stuff, right? Like even a partner, right, which is in English. So in a lot of international markets, like female partner is a different name, male partner is a different name. So like even when you normalize your attributes, you need to change those things. There are so many things like which matter for a country or region. For example, in when we were moving to Japan market, people really care about blood group type. So we never ingested data for that for our US or Europe markets, but when we went to Japan, in a lot of our experiences on task pane, which is the panel on the right, we actually like did some research at what are the top things which people care about, and blood group was the most important. So it is very important to localize the experience for a given market and really be cognizant of the needs of user and be culturally sensitive.
Yeah. So get any like any book you do you recommend like for any course or certification? Like many of the people in these schools are from some are having CA background, some are having non-IT. So for any them for anything to start with them, any book you recommend for them?
Yeah, so I so there are like one principle which I would like to recommend, and there is one book. So the book name is Measure What Matters. Like this is one of the best business or product or like kind of gives you a lot of thinking from a metric point of view and how you can really go deep in metrics. So do read this book. It's by John Doerr, like Doerr. It's called Measure What Matters. Like this is one of the best book which I have read from this from a business and product side. So this is a very highly recommended book from my end. And other than that, I think there are keep reading a lot about like a lot of case studies on like how do we solve product problems, how do we actually develop our problem solving skills. And specifically there are two very good blogs. So one is by Sachin Rekhi, let me type in the chat window, and one by Lewis Lin. So these guys like just go to their site and they have like very amazing like case studies and lot of like how do you develop these problem solving design skills, product thinking. And product thinking is also right, once you start solving this skill set, right, and start applying it to any kind of problem and do a lot of sample problems, case studies, you basically kind of start developing this skill. So Lewis Lin, I guess, yeah, these two like have amazing blogs, and like they're like both are very great product leaders, and things like this circles method. So I think you can even just start with these three. And there is a very good product talk on Mind the Product. Mind the Product, just search for this on YouTube. It's a 20-minute product talk by like again some very awesome guy. I don't remember his name, my bad. But I think you can just start with these three or four things. But I think the most important thing is you have to develop your story. Like what is it one thing which really can help you stand apart from the rest of the folks to help get into product. So you can be like a someone with great design skills, very great problem solving skills, or great data skills, or maybe like your communication skills are so great and you have some domain knowledge that you can be customer facing PM. So PM again in big companies, right? There are so many kind of PMs. Like I'm more of a data PM. There can be engineering PMs. There can be a customer PM. There can be more of a business related PM. So we have something called a business product managers. So PM is something which is kind of like vaguely used also for some roles, but if you really have a good story like that, this is something which you are really good in and this is what you stand for. So this principle again comes from this book, The One Thing is also a great book if you are looking for like better thinking and better product thinking. It's not product, it's like a way of life. That this guy says, 80-20 rule, right? So he says do a 80-20, and for 20 again do a 80-20. So your life should boil down to just two or three key things which you care about, and then you transform yourself from a task list to a success list or a priority list. So the book is called The One Thing. That is also a very beautiful read. So this guy really focuses on less which can give you more value. So this is also one of the very good books which I have read, which I would recommend to you guys. Yeah. So I think
Yes,
yeah,
right.
next question.
So actually, there is one question related to user story. Like a person is saying that he actually misses something whenever he writes a user story. So, like, is there any approach he can follow to like fulfill the complete requirements?
Okay. So you're saying that how can we really think from a customer point of view?
Actually, I can read also. So actually, he's saying he's a
Hmm.
product IT product manager, and the
Okay.
product is mainly B2B. But whenever
Okay.
he writes a user story, so it lands incomplete.
Got it.
So he want to ask like, is there any approach that you can recommend to him?
So I think the here what I will like suggest, right, if you're a B2B and like user story you are not able to like write completely. One is that talk to like as many people as you can. First of all, like talk to a lot of customers. Really try to understand what are their pain points or what are the things which they like about your product, or if they are going to some other competition, what are the things which they like about them, dislike about them. So try to first talk to like as many customers as you can and have very friendly conversations. Like I used to talk to a lot of my product, like to my customers in my previous org. Here it's more digital, so we do some like research studies and all, but it's mainly we track behavior, metrics, and everything. Direct interaction is less, but direct interaction will give you such amazing insights that you might not have thought about those things, but they come out like, wow, man, I did not even think about this, or these are the things which he wants, he likes, my competition about me. So first get all this arsenal basically. Then when you are writing this user story, right, so I think try to divide it into like what, why, how, when, and then really focus a much more on why. Like, why are you trying to do this? What is the real user value? How does it like kind of like tie in with your vision? And then you kind of uh, create the strategy out of this. So try to break this into these components. So use something like this circles method. So read it online. It is a very good method. Like, it kind of helps you create a good framework. So get your all your arsenal, do a lot of research, follow some of these approaches like a circles method, and then write user story. Like, these were the user problem, how did you identify your target customer and identify the needs, then how do you prioritize some of the options, list solutions, and give some recommendation, look at ROI. So, and then basically define your KPIs and success metrics. So follow an approach, write everything down, and then iterate 2 3 times over it again and again. You will automatically find, yeah, this is missing, or if I'm trying to do this, is this justified, could have tried this other thing, will it tie into my business or my or goals. And then the next thing is, once you write it, go very deep, then get it reviewed by your peers. So ask your some other fellow PM that, hey, this is the problem I'm solving. Like, people come with so much of fresh perspectives and different viewpoint that it really helps you. Like, this, oh, you did not think like this, or this recommendation is not looking good, or don't you think like this is not creating enough value, or this is good but the usage will be very very less, the ROI is not good enough, or the ROI is good but engineering wise it's something it will take forever to do. So the last step is a peer review. So this is the approach. Follow, like, do a lot of research, talk to a lot of customers, follow some approach like a circles method, build it down, do a very self critical review, then do a peer review. The net result would be something good. Yep.
Yes, Ankit, I think we covered most of the questions. So even though we requested for 45 minutes, so thanks for extending the session also. There are
Yeah, no
few
worries.
questions left in the window. So can I mail you that questions and then we can reply?
Sure, sure. Sounds good. If you want, like, we can still cover 1 or 2 questions. It's okay. If
Okay.
there is something which is very interesting.
Okay. So if anyone like to they can unmute themselves and talk also. Like if anyone wants to ask something.
Yeah, folks, please feel free. Like, we can take a couple of questions. Yeah.
Hi, Ankit, Saloni here.
Okay.
So, though you already talked about my question that I asked, it says that when we say segmentation of customers, psychographic segmentation is one of them. So, what I'm trying to understand is that when we divide customers on the basis of psychography, we get a lot of psychological characteristics. But how
Okay.
do we put those parameters into our product? How do we make changes according to them?
Okay. So I think it's a good question. So it will depend. Like, once you are saying that there's psychographic analysis, right? So
Yeah.
it's based on, like, you are trying to create some user personas, and then you are trying to identify the needs, or how you can build a great solution for some of these target audience. So it will depend, right? What is your product for?
Yeah.
So if, for example, your product is for some rich kids, right? I know that there was one of my known guy who became a millionaire, and he used to just click photos for Facebook profiles for rich kids. So there are, like, it really depends upon, like, who is your target audience and what are you building for, and that automatically your product strategy will help you define that what do you need to build for. So once you, like, if it depends on your product, like, what is your target audience. Like, there might be a cheese which is selling 5,000 rupees kg to a cheese which is selling 200 rupees kg, right? So based on your target audience and based on the product and the USP or the core value of your product, you will automatically be able to align it with the respective target audience. Yeah, let me know if I covered or you had something else in mind.
If there are any examples you have from any of your product that in which psychographic segmentation helped you, it would be really helpful.
So I don't know what exactly in my psychographic per se. I can give an example. In my last org, right, we had this text filing product, right? So it was a B2C filing products. So there we used to do a lot of segmentation on, like, from which channel is the user coming, from which kind of company is he coming, was that email sent by HR, or was he coming from a referral channel, if he is a first time filer, or if it is he or she is a returning filer, or how many attempts is the user taking to file the tax return, or if what is the probability that this guy or this user will actually we can cross sell and have them move to our mutual funds flow as well. So we used to do a lot of like this categorization and to identify like the user behavior and their chances of conversion, how many people can be fans whom we can use for growing via our referral channel. And then we used to like tailor some of the things. We used to like have different strategies with these folks, and even the kind of requirements for these folks were very different. So so there we used to have a lot of like this analysis and these funnels created for different type of users, though everyone is doing the tax filing, but I had 8 major categories of users. And then we used to like work on our strategies and communication channel and engagement and cross selling monetization for these channels separately. And our strategies, though it's still B2C tax filing consumer tech, but this differentiation and segmentation actually helped us a lot in achieving our business objectives. So that's one example from my previous work.
Yeah, that really helps. Thank you, Ankit.
No worries. Yeah, so I think we can take one last question, and then I think you guys
Hi.
can reach out to me offline. Yes, please.
Hi, Ankit. Thanks for the insightful session. This is Gopal Jha here.
Okay, hey
So,
Gopal.
so I'm coming from the service industry, like actually Cognizant only,
Okay.
and where like the product decisions are made by the client side, but we work like business analyst, data analyst, development, or QA. So if we want to go to the product management, but definitely we have not done the customer segmentation because we are in the B2, like supporting the business to which is
client
supporting the
side, yeah.
customer. So what are the skills which we are having or what we can make strengthen so that we can also like we can try for the product management role?
Right. Yeah, I think it's
What do you
a very
suggest?
good question. Yeah. So I think what I will recommend right in the beginning is try to like shadow them. Don't always be on the like they are giving something, you're taking it. That will be the process. Continue, but try to think more. Then try to see if there is something which you can define better, some better metrics you can think, some better solutioning you can propose, some better ROI or some better prioritization you can do. Slowly start thinking about those things which they are giving it to you. And even like if and try to work on some of those proposals and give it back to the client. Like I also work with say service providers who are doing a lot of work for us, and sometimes they give very good ideas that Ankit, you should do like this, or did you try this, or see I make a spec by which this thing can be improved. So first thing is start thinking about the problem and start working on your own solutions. Start thinking about the user, work on the problem, build your own recommendations, and see if you can share them with the client. And so at least it will be learning for you. So sometimes it is possible that once you're sharing this great knowledge, right, or great recommendations or solutions to some of these problems, they might also pick some of them. But even if they don't, at least you have a chance to learn some of these things. And so I think that's where you can at least start working on this flow. And meanwhile, like you brush some of your skill set, the things which I mentioned to you, and then I think you can start applying for other companies like a core PM role, where you can actually say that you also used to like work on some of these problems and co-think or work together on some of these solutions and through a partnership, not directly owned. But you can definitely show that skill set basically when you are actually applying for those roles and giving those interviews. Yeah, so it has to be a step by step process, but at least nobody is stopping you from thinking about these problems and working or like proposing some better solutions which may or may not be implemented. Yeah, so that would be my like recommendation on this, Gopal.
Thanks a lot, Ankit. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Arun, shall we wrap up now?
Yeah, thank you, Ankit, so much. So actually, I will go through the chat, and if there is some unanswered question, so we will get back to them also. I will share.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ankit, for that.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time and all the best. And yeah, thank you. Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Ankit. Bye.
Thanks, guys.